by miraculously overcoming the Persian Empire, Ishtar, the ruler of the now independent Assyrian kingdom, has written his own name into the history books for eternity. It standing on your own 2 feet might have its own advantages, but is also accompanied by quite a few issues. We are completely alone in the land of giants with more internal problems that even could bring down the Achaemenid Empire. Stability is deteriorating and Ishtar is viewed as a tyrant who doesn't have a true claim to the throne anymore. This is mainly because of the different religious beliefs between himself and the country at large. As of today, Assyria is primarily followers of the Zoroastrian faith, whereas the king wants to resurrect the Chaldean gods worshipped by his ancestors. Ishtar might not have a single clue on how to convert his people, but that won't stop him from trying. Expecting culture and customs might have a say in such matters, the king makes an executive order to integrate the Aramaic people as citizens of Assyria. After all, they are part of the same culture group as us. In order to deal with the increase in administrative affairs that follows becoming an independent nation, the need for additional learned men is required. Hence, we welcome another family to ascend into the ranks of the elite. For the time being, they will work on bringing Assyria into a bright future through research and innovations. One day, while we develop our capital province, a debate concerning the Aramaic recruitment drive gets brought up. The right to join the military and defend Assyria through force of arms is a point of pride of our citizens. Now, with increasing rights bestowed upon the Aramaic people, calls are mounting that they should too be allowed to serve in the military army, as a possible solution to our dwindling manpower reserves that suffered so dearly during the War of Independence. Of course, this might well cause jealousy and resentment with our existing soldiery. But despite the risk of mutiny, we embrace the call, releasing several Aramaic slaves from their bonds. Another ploy to achieve his religious goal is to change Assyria's religious idea from a state religion towards a powerful origin myth. A myth about how our nation can be traced back to the heroes of old. Additionally, as we need to replenish our manpower, we begin implementing the idea of conscription and how military service should be considered a privilege, not just a duty. As we gradually embrace the Aramaic culture into our nation, their mannerisms and habits are becoming increasingly accepted even in Ninu, our capital. As a result, people have become more open and public in their obedience of Aramaic cultural practices, leading to colorful and exotic views in more and more of the streets of the city. They are integral parts of what will make Assyria strong again. Although Ishtar is advised to consolidate his power by getting rid of his aggressive expansion and at the same time bolster his legitimacy, he cannot help to seize an opportunity as blatant as this one. The Persian Empire, our former overlords, are at the threshold of disloyalty. Everyone with a sound mind knows a civil war is on the horizon. As the Persian Empire splits in two, so will their armies be divided, leading their lands ripe for occupation. Lands with holy sites dedicated to the Chaldean gods. Hopefully now you see why this is an opportunity too good to let go of. The Ishtar raises now 12,000 strong levy just outside of Ashur, one of the more important cities with the before-mentioned holy sites. Furthermore, he takes advantage of Assyria's extensive wealth and hires a large mercenary company to help out in this matter. Assyria goes to war with the Persian revolt and immediately conquers Hatra, the capital of the only province near our eastern flank. We let the looting be gentle as we don't want to risk harming any of the holy sites in the area. Occupying this land reveals an army stationed further south, but considering the other Persian faction has an army just next to them, I predict they won't be an issue for much longer. Instead, we move west where a bunch of their smaller levies are harassing our land. While we chase them down, Ishtar is confronted with a dilemma. Imperator, the Gedrosian, has made quite a reputation for himself within the mercenary army he commands. Unfortunately, it is not the manner of reputation that instills confidence in his leadership. Despite the extreme wariness of our soldiers, Imperator recently ordered the execution of several junior officers as an example to his troops. Utter insanity! Interceding could be dangerous, but something must be done. Despite the risk, we cannot allow such behavior among our commanders. Hence we have the Imperator flocked in front of all of the troops, boosting their morale significantly. We take on the smaller armies, defeating them decisively to then push into Syria proper. Many of the regions are without fortresses, persuading Nadine Ishtar to call up his son and heir, Ashur, to help out. This isn't originally part of the plan, considering Ashur just barely escaped with his life during his last battle. Yet Ashur's nimbler army will have an easier time getting around to these various regional capitals that we need to take control of in order to occupy the land. The war effort goes seamlessly up until the heir's arrival. His task is to march down along the Euphrates River, so we, the Assyrians, have full control of the leading roads through Mesopotamia. But on his way, Ashur meets a Persian levy at the same size of his own. Doubting his own ability, Ashur decides to wait for his father, the king, who has already divided one of his own levies to help out. But this time, the king doesn't get there in time. Ashur is once again defeated, crushing what little legitimacy the Seleukid dynasty has left. Just to be clear, Ashur survives physically, but mentally, this loss takes a heavy toll on him. At the end of the day, because of the worsening internal situation, Nadine Ishtar decides to negotiate his demands for peace. Although the king wants to demand all of the land in the Levant, giving us our first port in the Mediterranean, this simply isn't possible. We don't have enough time to further build up our war score, not to forget all of these claims will harm our aggressive expansion significantly. It might be decreasing, but it is still extremely high, and no matter how much we demand, it will only get worse. Unable to decide for himself, Nadine Ishtar allows his advisors to decide the list of demands. Overall, this war brought a great expansion to our kingdom, while still encouraging our desire to grow. This new province of ours brings along another opportunity to solidify Seleucid control of the nation, which honestly is heavily needed considering their lack of legitimacy. Lusthammer, the oldest son of Ashur and subsequently grandson of the king, is appointed governor to prove his skill as a future statesman. Too bad he, as a member of the royal family, has a venomous tongue. Another boon from our conquest is control over the province of Apolloniasis, further progressing our matters in Mesopotamia. We build a conqueror statue in Ashur, encouraging assimilation speed and migration attraction. This is probably also about all of the advantages we have gained. Practically all of the major players in the region despise us, apart from the Pani of course, who only consider us imbeciles. With peacetime follows a desire to build. Having taken advantage of the lack of forts in the Levant ourselves, Nadine Ishtar signs an executive order to fortify the land. We have to keep our business investments safe from bandits or raiders. Additionally, we initiate the never-ending battle of fighting corruption. I mean, we are already enacting a policy of keeping wages extremely high, which also helps combat such matters. But this was the first time the king called out individuals by name. Okay, I won't lie to you, maybe some of these people are being targeted because of their wealth. Just put them on trial and give them a small fine to pay. Not even children were safe. It seems this 12-year-old girl has gotten her hands on a lot of gold and has started investing a great deal of silver into building a reputation for herself lately. Though it is unclear exactly where she found these riches, her efforts are surprisingly effective, and therefore we should probably call this acquisition of gold a youth tax. Nadine Ishtar also sees and divert the resources from the citizens of this town here to construct a library for military purposes at the cost of his deteriorating popularity. This might be a coincidence, but following these tyrannic actions, the king finally emerges from a depression that had tormented his mind for quite some time. Splendid indeed. Or maybe it was the sheer brutality of breaking into his grandson's own home and imprisoning his 1-year-old child, just to have him banished to Armenia that made him smile again. Perhaps the old king has simply found joy in the absurdity of his own madness, laughing like a man who just realized the universe is a cruel joke and he is the punchline. Or maybe, just maybe, his mind had finally snapped like an overdrawn lute string, and now he danced on the edge of reasoning, waltzing with lunacy in a ballroom of his own making. Nevertheless, Losthammer was outraged by this. The constant infight between those who would name themselves heir can consume countless resources and lives. Our spies at the court are certain that Losthammer is plotting to ensure his future by doing away with the competition. But we don't bring much thought to the matter. He then begins spending increasing quantities of time with our beloved heir and also his own father, Asher. A slightly worrying thought considering they both are governors on the opposite ends of the kingdom. Again, the king doesn't realize what is afoot until it is too late. While Losthammer arranged to meet with Ursan, the second son of the king, and also our high priest, Asher had his hired thugs attempt to ransack his home. Unfortunately, a sizable quantity of wealth was stolen and we have no proof of their involvement. An eye for an eye, and yet far from a fully satisfying act of justice. Ursan is caught in the middle of this internal plotting and thus gets pushed further away from the dingy Ishtar's religious vision and instead seeks to strengthen his Zoroastrian faith. Ursan believes it is important that our people know we are guided by Ahura Mazda and the wisdom of Zoroaster. He therefore suggests supporting our magi's and priests in spreading these teachings to the people even further. But all he finds is deaf ears from the king. No, we have no intentions of dancing on the magi's tunes. A decision that somewhat proves fruitful. The patriotic citizens of Nineveh are ecstatic at our benevolent rule, and thus raise a significant amount of gold for the state treasury. Assyria is prospering. Legitimacy might still be in a terrible position, but it is improving so long our aggressive expansion is diminished. As our surgeons revealed, the king might not have much time left on this earth. Nadinti Ishtar declares war and conquers Comagene, a small lump of land on the western edge of the Assyrian province, that until now was the subject of the decrepit Antigonid kingdom. Through this land, Assyria will officially be considered a major power of the known world. Along with such a title follows the opportunity to forge alliances with other major powers whose goals align with our own. The Pani, now Parthians, equally views the Persian Empire as their main rivals, so an alliance with them is only logical. Well, until it is no longer that case. Shortly after this, we adopt the cavalry skirmish tradition into our armies, widening our views of the world, especially in regards to stoicism and guilt by association, thus actually combating corruption and becoming a more beloved ruler at the same time. This is sadly also the last act of Nadinti Ishtar, the man who brought back the Assyrian kingdom. At 74 years of age, the king passes down his crown to his own son and heir. Ashur Seleukid, the first of his name, ascended the throne at a rather old age, 55 to be precise, and thus seeks to make a proper name for himself, before it is too late. Especially considering the dread his long streak of defeats has brought upon him. Ashur won't tolerate being viewed as a soft king. Similar to his father, he too is considered the tyrant of the extremes, but with far more legitimacy to the throne and almost no aggressive expansion at all. His idea is to take on the former overlords of Assyria, the Persians, planning to seize all of Mesopotamia while also getting access to the Mediterranean. He raise all of his levies and divide them into armies of 6,000 men each. The commanders of these armies will be none other than Ashur's own sons. Losthammer, the oldest son, has become so beloved by the citizens under his governorate that he is being celebrated all throughout the region. Hopefully he can inspire his troops in the same manner. His brother Nagal-ubalid, although quite young and limited in martial prowess, possesses a capable mind worthy of field testing. He will receive command once he is ready. The invasion kicks off with all of their levies rushing down the Tigris River, while a single mercenary army sweep up the land of the Levant, along with our Cappadocian allies. However, if you too wonder where the enemy response is, then simply look beyond the Zagros mountains. The Parthians, our other allies, are causing so much havoc with their own war goals that the Macedonians simply can't hold their ground. One city after the other capitulates to our might. The only city to somewhat withstand our armies, albeit for only a short time, is Seleukia Megala, the heart and symbol of Macedonian oppression. There should be no raised eyebrows about how none of these people could hide from our Assyrian troops. Furthermore, due to this act, Ashur actually ends up getting known as one of the cruelest men of the world. He certainly tries his hardest to embody cruelty through every city he conquers and sacks. The war effort progressed effortlessly until the useless Persians inside of the region of Chaldea, ironically enough, rebels. Ashur plans to capture this land himself, so this is rather annoying. However, after the war, Ashur will make them bend the knee as a client state of ours. This walkover of a war results in a massive territorial expansion of Assyria that now spans from the Persian Gulf all the way over to the Mediterranean. The city of Babylon has finally fallen to our troops and is now in our hands. Babylon was built by the Euphrates and was an important city-state and kingdom, being one of the major players of the regional politics of Mesopotamia. With the fall of its independence, it has become one of the more important cities of the Persian Empire. With the city now under our control, our men and advisors wonder how we should treat our old enemy. There have been people asking us to sack the city to the ground and send everything valuable back home. However, as Ashur too follows the same dream his father had about bringing forth the Chaldean religion, we cannot burn down cities of such cultural value to that same religion. That would be blasphemy. Babylon will remain untouched, massively boosting Ashur's legitimacy. But neither of Seleucia, Megala or Antiochia offers the same religious value to us. Quite the opposite actually. Ashur lives up to his cruel reputation and makes sure his men take everything that can be sold for money. A soft king certainly couldn't make such a decision. However, cruelty is apparently a trait that can be passed down. We've already experienced the ambitions of Lusthammer, and it is rumored that he has struck again. Nagal-Obalis has fallen ill, rumored to be poisoned. There is no proof of this at all, but Ashur is certain of it. Simply looking at the eyes of Lusthammer tells him everything he needs to know. He must be guilty. Luckily, it is discovered in time, so we can seek treatment for Nagal-Obalis at the cost of 200 gold. It is a miracle he recovers. These turn of events cause Ashur to bend the line of succession, instead making his younger son the heir to the Assyrian throne. With such a title come marriage obligations. Considering the power of Assyria, the Seleukid family looks to strengthen their bond with other nations rather than simply marrying another Assyrian noblewoman. Hence Nagal-Obalis is betrothed and later on married to Suwate, a pious Parthian princess. Despite easily winning the war, there are still questions of Ashur's competence. After weeks of nervous looks and smokes at court, the whispers circling the palace have finally reached the ears of the king. Similar to what happened to his father, people are spreading rumors of Ashur's unfitness for the throne. But the damage isn't done yet. Perhaps we can help to guide him considering his redeemable character. As a result of this, Ashur makes changes to Assyria's subject laws. Instead of keeping all of the future land we conquer under our united banner, plans are made to split up future conquests into client-state nations, thus limiting the negative impacts of all these various cultures we encounter. The king's brother Urson, however, can no longer tolerate Ashur's godless impiety. Is this an act of defiance, or even an attempt to overthrow his own brother? Without the support of the priesthood, the people will start to believe that Ashur does not have the support of the gods, which would harm our legitimacy. Although his claim to the high seat is basically unquestionable at the moment, we will not risk going down such a road again and thus make a large donation to the priesthood, despite them still being followers of the wrong religion. In terms of traditions, we allow our veterans to begin forming military colonies that are cheaper to found, a great boon to our large kingdom that could use this addition to assimilate the masses. As long as these cultures aren't fully integrated, there will be a higher chance of rebellion against us. So in order to avoid this happening, Ashur goes on anabasis, lengthy tours around our disloyal provinces, restoring faith in our regime. At the same time, the king also go around to these smaller independent eyesores in the middle of our realm, adding them to our nation. Not to forget the schemes we plot against the Egyptians to hand over neighboring unruly territory, similar to how Nidint Ishtar originally expanded Assyria's influence. Additionally, Assyria as a whole has become quite rich by dealing with the Persians. This gold will largely be invested into creating countless farming settlements throughout the nation. Our people shouldn't be able to starve under Seleukid rule anymore. He spent so much gold on this that he barely can afford to pay for maintenance of the gardens of Babylon. This wonder of the world is too important to let wither away, and as such, no expense is spared. Hopefully it still shines like a beacon by the time the newborn son of Nagal-ubalid, Nidinti Ishtar, fittingly enough, comes of age. From this young age alone, it is clear to see he will become a truly pious man. In order to slightly appease Ursun the Zoroastrian zealot, Ashur concurs to bring back two of their deities into our pantheon. This way he can bring some form of peace to that front, while he and Nagal-ubalid march out to assist their Parthian allies in yet another offensive against the Persian Empire. However, this broke the status quo, bringing forth a confrontation between tyrants and patriots, between brothers. The tyrannic rule of King Ashur has stretched even his most loyal subjects to the limit. With the right words, the elites could be persuaded to back someone who will take matters into their own hands, for the sake of Assyria. Ursun the High Priest is widely regarded as the best bet. He has some influence at court and is known as solid and reliable, with the best interest of Assyria at heart, not to forget his solid claim for the throne. Of course, in ventures like these, it can be hard to predict how events will unfold, even if the plot succeeds, but death for all those directly involved is almost certain if they should fail. Treason will not be contemplated in Assyria and has to be punished. Ashur imprisons his own brother, further destabilizing the nation. Some might say this too is a cruel act, yet Ashur couldn't fully commit to this decision, thus letting his brother live the rest of his life behind bars, not sentencing him to slavery or death like so many others before him had done. Ashur would instead try to occupy his mind with state affairs, such as establishing his first client state beyond the Zagros Mountains in the lands of Media. Additionally, without Ursun standing in his way, Ashur is able to make religious advances in the form of translated symbology, a powerful way to promote the superiority of the Seleukid family. Yet similar to his father, the march of time is around the corner. At 74 years of age, Ashur has already outlived his father, but now suffers from cancer, a wicked illness that brings forth the worst of the king. Ashur has gained a reputation as a brutal tyrant who cares nothing for those he rules over. Rabble-rousers have begun to gather in the streets to openly condemn his misrule of Assyria. Yet anyone who truly has witnessed what Ashur has done, it is clear none of it is for his own glory, but rather the people he protects. He doesn't even execute the troublemakers, but rather embrace the reputation. With the clueless populace starting to rally against him, the king loses his mind, starting to slaver at the mouth, uttering inane nonsense, even proposing marriages to each and every member of his court in the space of an hour. Ashur may finally have cracked. Oh dear. All of the elite tries to take advantage of this situation, proposing marriages with the cruel and tyrannic lunatic. It is only Nagal-ubalid who makes sure this doesn't happen. The crown is too close for him now to let it slip away. As fugitive from Pontus fleeing a dreadful war arrives at our gates, Ashur sentences them to death, not understanding what he is doing. He even begins to revert all of his hard work, establishing a Zoroastrian temple just outside of Nineveh. Luckily, some might say, this is the last bit of harm he does to Assyria. Following his decree signed years ago, the line of succession overlooked Losthammer, Ashur's oldest son and rightful heir, and instead goes to Nagal-ubalid, the first of his name. Hopefully he can bring Assyria back on the right course again.